Well, you might remember last week I spoke with Julie Webb-Pullman on the day her daughter Bianca was intercepted by the Israeli Navy. Bianca was one of 7 Australians who were part of the Global Sumud Flotilla, a convoy attempting to break the blockade of Gaza. Activist Greta Thunberg was also detained. Now, as you can imagine, Julie was very worried about her daughter, but she was also upset about the lack of help from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Bianca Webb-Pullman has now been released and joins me on the phone. Bianca, thanks for joining us. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm much better than I was. So since being released, I've been eating again because I was on hunger strike during my time in Israel, and I've had a decent night's sleep on a nice mattress. And I've had my medication, which I was denied in prison, so I'm feeling much better.
Okay, what did you go through? Did you say you went on a hunger strike?
Yes, a number of us on the flotilla went on a hunger strike, basically because we had been abducted in international waters, taken to a country we had, no intention of travelling to, and in protest at our treatment.
The whole thing about mobile phones being thrown overboard, was that you guys throwing them over, or was that the Israeli
that
forces?
was us.
And why
No, that was definitely us doing that. Well, because, we're talking about a force that had already, we'd had 2 strikes by drone strikes on our boats. These are not people that had good intentions towards us.
So you were worried about them getting your information?
Absolutely, 100%. So we did not want them having access to our information, so we were throwing them overboard for that reason.
And what happened while you were detained?
We were denied any phone calls. We were denied any medication. Women were denied sanitary pads and bleeding through their clothes. Women had their hijabs ripped off and denied them. We repeatedly called for medication for various people and doctors. So we were yelling for doctors for hours, literally, at different points in time. One part that was particularly memorable was when we were all sort of huddled in a cage. They had 57 people in a small cage and women, and we were repeatedly yelling for a doctor for a woman. And it was a Jewish American woman that was asking and yelling and asking for, well, she wasn't yelling, she was asking for a doctor. And the guard said, if you don't shut up, we'll gas you.
What? Wow.
Yes, exactly. And you've got 57 people that were in that cage, or however many. I think we counted, and there was around 57 people.
That is a hell of a...
we counted exactly 57. Yeah,
Bianca, that is a big claim to make.
Hello. Well, I tell you what, you've got plenty of witnesses for that one. And that's people from all over the world.
I'm genuinely shocked to hear that, especially with the history of Israel and Jewish people.
Yep, and this is saying this to an American Jewish woman. And this was really, they've made, there's just so many examples of incidents like that. That's probably the most jarring if you just think of the history and the context.
Yeah.
Another one, a black woman being called a monkey and do you want a banana? Was just these minor ones. These are sort of minor, I say minor, it's not really minor. But there were just so many of these smaller incidents.
This is not how we expect citizens of countries that are partners, that are allies of Israel, to be treated.
The way they treated us, I can tell you, right, 100%, these are not our friends. These are not our allies. These are people that took great pleasure in humiliating us, and demonizing us and calling us terrorists, accusing us of supporting Hamas, also saying, how much were you paid to do this? Surely they just wouldn't believe. Some of these guards just, found it ridiculous that we would have done this of our own volition, and, accusing us of, like I said, terrorism, Hamas support, all of these sort of things. This was an ongoing thing. This was throughout 4 days. Even just the thing of having these men with those riot shields and helmets and batons and guns. I mean, they've got those massive rifles or whatever they are, and marching into, banging on the door and making us all go in the corner to count us. And the other thing I forgot to mention, in the exercise yard, which I was allowed, in my cell, we got one shower during the 4 days, and we got one break of 15 minutes to walk around in the yard. The rest of the time we were locked in our cell. In that yard, they have this big, huge sign saying, with a photo of just devastated Gaza, with saying "the new Gaza" on it. And then they put on continuous loop recordings of October 7 that some women were forced to sit down and watch that before they left. The rest of us, it was just all on loop the whole time in the background. And yeah, look, as a doctor, the things that for me, one of the most stressful things was having people calling for a doctor for literally hours at various occasions. And I'm on 2 cells away from these people. And, okay, there's not much I could have done, but to hear that and not be able to help those people was extremely difficult. Yeah.
Let me ask
And I mean,
you...
there were people in the men's... Yep.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say there were people in the men's prison with diabetes and insulin, and those people were denied the insulin, which I only heard this through because we didn't see the men except when we were with our consul or after the whole thing, after we were shipped out of there. But I personally know one of those people with diabetes, and to be denied insulin when you are, that's got serious health implications. So to hear that he'd been subjected to that, it's just,
Was there sleep deprivation? Was there actually anything that was...
Well, this was, it sort of depends what you classify as sleep deprivation. I mean, they would wake us up in the middle of the night and yell at us and make us get up and move to the back of the prison thing to count us. So, it was extremely disruptive. And as for prolonged periods of sleep deprivation, that didn't occur in my experience. But yeah, and then so, having our clothes taken, a lot of people were kicked, hit, or whatever.
So hang on, when you say your clothes were taken, were you forced to be in these cells naked?
No, what it was is that they made us go into a cubicle and take off some of our clothes, strip down for a search or whatever. Right. Then we were allowed to put back our clothes. We weren't allowed to put our jackets on it for quite a long time. I don't know why, but they just said no, even though it's cold inside. And and then they took all of our possessions, and it was really basically one thing that is hard to convey is a humiliating behaviour, because we each had this particular police officer or whatever they were going with us and barking orders at us and pointing and commanding us it was just humiliating, that aspect of it. We had all of our bags and everything taken off us. They'd open our bag and go and just get everything out of it and throw it into the rubbish bin right in front of us, including our medication. So They got my medication, threw it in the bin. I said, I need it. It's really important. I need that medication. No, too bad. They didn't answer me. Then they saw my stethoscope because I'm a doctor, and they said, oh, you're another doctor, because there was another one ahead of me that had gone through. And I said yes, and then he threw that into the rubbish bin. I was like, why? Give it back. Like, what? Why are you taking it? And the answer was, you're not allowed to bring that into Israel. You're not allowed to bring these things into Israel. And it's like, we did not come to Israel. We were abducted in international waters. But anyway, that's an aside.
Well, it's a big aside because it was international waters. But look, I mentioned in the introduction that your mum, who I spoke to last week, she was really worried about you, but she was furious about the lack of support from DFAT. Was she right to be angry?
Well, the problem is when I was in there, I signed a form saying that my information could be provided to my mother and my partner, and I said that I was fine. I gave that message. And as for any more information or anything like that, I don't actually know much about what else was or wasn't conveyed. I know that I was fine and that I did pass that message out. And beyond that, I mean, there was some kind of printed reports that the other families received, I believe, that she was denied. But that's all I know about that.
Okay, well,
I don't
the
know.
Australians,
Yeah.
yourself and the other Australians, were the last to be released. Now, Juliet
Yep.
Lamont was also detained, and she says it was because
Yep.
of the lack of support from our government. Have a listen to what she said.
We are finally out, and it was a really long process. And the Australian government is absolutely shameful in our extraction. They have not really supported us at all. We were the last people out of 50 nationalities. We were left there probably, we thought, because it was the October the 7th, that we would be left there to wither. And now we are here with not much support, but we're out.
Does that match up with your experience?
Well, look, the problem being in there is we have absolutely no idea what's going on. So we did have those 2 brief visits from the acting consul. And, you know, we weren't really, I mean, I don't know what the process is for getting people out of there, but we were among the last to get out. Why that is, I don't know. And it is really a question for DFAT because, you know, is it some failure on their part? Is it some inaction on their part? All I know is we were the last ones amongst the last in there. That's what I know. And yeah.
Which must have been very scary, but there's been this is causing a lot of conversation here, and all sides of politics are saying, having their say. But what about the idea that you chose to go into a war zone, and so should the government have to rush to your aid?
Now, I think it's really important to understand what we were doing. We were taking humanitarian aid, we were taking food, we were taking medication to a people who have been under forced starvation, under a genocide, who also, this illegal siege has been going on since 2007. This isn't something that happened since October 7. That's a lawful mission. It is lawful for us to take that aid to those people, and there is absolutely no jurisdiction that Israel has on us providing that aid or our ability to travel to Gaza. So that is illegal in humanitarian law. It's also maritime law to abduct us at sea like that. As for, you know, we should or shouldn't have done it. Look, this is a deep moral failure on the part of international governments, including the Australian government, to apply sufficient pressure to Israel for them to change this policy, for them to end this genocide. So none of us, I don't think there's a single person on any of those boats that wanted to be there. We did not want this to be necessary. We did not want this level of starvation, this inhuman crimes to be going on for 2 years without our government stepping up. We had a moral obligation to do that. You know, we all took time out of our busy lives. We all, you know, would have lost income, put our families through an enormous amount of stress to go and do this stuff. And, you know, how are we supposed to sleep at night? We've spent 2 years doing our best protesting, signing petitions, open letters. I'm a doctor. We had memorial vigils for the doctors that have been killed. We had protests asking for doctors to be protected, ends to the attacks on healthcare systems. Over 1,580 doctors at last count medical workers, including nurses, paramedics, had been killed by Israel before we embarked on this flotilla. This is not just a decision we made lightly. It's something we felt a deep moral obligation to do. As for, blaming us for this, the blame lies with two parties in my mind, which is Israel for perpetuating this genocide, and from the Australian government for failing to take any action. So we were, as people around the world, we had to take action. We have to end this genocide. We have to end the starvation. We have to end the oppression of the Palestinian people. And if it takes us doing that, then that's what should, happen. And we are protected under international law. This is a completely lawful mission. There is absolutely no justification for anybody
to put any obstacles
in our path.
is one of the things that bothers me. But look, when it comes to what's going on, we obviously had the events of October 7. We've had the then pushback from Israel towards Hamas. There is hopes of peace.
Let's not call a genocide pushback.
Well,
look, that entirely depends on Israel.
I do not claim to know enough about this topic. I do not have the passion that you have for it. It worries me. It worries me that so much death has happened in Palestine, and I do think there are issues from Israel. So please do not think for one moment that I am just there supporting. Having said that, I found the events of October 7 horrific, and so I will categorically state that. Yes. But some of the things I have seen happening in Gaza have also been horrific. So, you know, do not take me the wrong way, and I'm not passing judgment. I support people who believe in something so passionately and go and follow that through. So that's why I've been fascinated to talk to you. And I do have concerns about what happened in international waters. I really do. And I do think DFAT are always slow to support Australians. And if it was an American that had been captured, I think America reacts and protects their people much faster than Australia does.
It's not true. It's actually completely inaccurate on this occasion. Americans were... Yes, they've had atrocious treatment from their consul, who just essentially said to them, there is nothing we can do for you. This is all in Israel's hands. We have no control over anything. Well,
that's not true.
America that's exactly what they were told.
Something. Yeah, we absolutely, know and that's something. What. That's a choice.
Absolutely, and so we have one person who is a dual Australian and American citizen, who actually was on his American passport, who was, because of the treatment he received from that consul, being told they were on their own, they had no money, they had no phone, they had no nothing, and they were just told, too bad, you know, you get on this plane and that's it. He actually came and approached the Australian consulate for assistance, and they've been helping him. So they actually, you know what, they've been singled out for especially poor treatment.
Well, there you go.
And so, exactly. But when you consider the regime that's in power there, that fits in, because they are, you know, obviously have a lot of interests in common with Israel. They are serving the same mission, essentially. So it's natural that their citizens would be punished more than the rest of us.
Okay, Bianca, well, you'll be back on Australian soil on Friday, which I'm sure will make you more than happy. Thank you for joining us on McKnight Tonight.
Fun, insightful interviews from a washed-up producer with nothing to lose. McKnight Tonight, McKnight Tonight. It's good night from McKnight.